Chelsea fans, Mauricio Pochettino is now on the brink of becoming your next manager. The Argentine is now leading the race and well in front to take over at Stamford Bridge, to be in the hot seat in the stadium. And it's been a long process. It's been a hard process for the Chelsea board. They've had to work hard to try and bring in the right man, and there's certainly been some twists and tails in the road, but they're getting closer now to replacing Graham Potter with Tottenham's former boss. Pochettino has impressed Chelsea on a number of interviews, and they've become more and more convinced he could be the man to take them forward. But this is Chelsea this season, and there's been many surprises already, so nothing is done yet, and there's certainly not a journalist who's going to put it out until they know for sure that he's signing the dotted line, although, as we've put out already, we do understand he is now closing in on that position. Chelsea, of course, went for Julian Nagelsmann at first, and that ended up falling apart for a number of reasons. One, the understanding was that Nagelsmann thought the job was his to take his time over, and there was a lot of support for him in the club. Whether Chelsea have put out the line that there was no favourite candidate, we do understand Nagelsmann was liked quite a lot. However, when Chelsea became less and less proactive in offering the job, when they started talking to multiple different candidates, Nagelsmann became a bit less convinced, and in the end stepped back from the process. Both parties really parting ways from that, but we think Nagelsmann was the instigator in that regard. Of course, they looked at Luis Enrique as well, the former Barcelona manager. That was never as close, I don't think, as some people were suggesting, some reports may have suggested, just because he did a couple of interviews. He did give a presentation with a PowerPoint about what he would do, but it never really was that convincing for both Chelsea and him. I don't think it went as far, perhaps, as Nagelsmann did, where Chelsea probably would have offered him the job if he was still in the race. And then, of course, you've got the likes of Vincent Kompany, who's been looked at Burnley, coming back into the Premier League, liked by a lot of clubs, has been looked at Spurs, or looked at by Spurs, I should say, as well, but at this point in time still set to stay at Burnley to bring them into the Premier League and to manage in the world's best league. But of course, Kompany, with the way he's going, looks like he will move on from Burnley at some point. Who knows, he might bring them in to the English Premier Division and actually do really well, stay there and push on, do like a Thomas Frank at Brentford, for example. But seems like Kompany's on his way to bigger things. We shall wait and see on that front. But again, Chelsea have had admired him from a distance. They haven't actually made any effort to try and offer him the job at this point, is our understanding. Of course, Ange Postecoglou, another name who we knew Chelsea had looked at, had admired, but again, from a distance, I should say. Again, Postecoglou has stated, you'll be surprised how long I'm at Celtic. He's committed to the cause. His side are on for a treble if they get past Rangers in the Scottish Cup semi-final. He wouldn't be leaving any time soon. And again, I think that his name was linked and rightly put down on a big shortlist, but certainly not near the top at this point, of course. And then you have Ruben Amorim, who's at Sporting Lisbon, the boss that has impressed so many this season. He really has. He's been fantastic in Portugal. His side play good football. He develops young players really, really well. And of course, everyone watched his side knock out Arsenal, didn't they, in Europe in a penalty shootout. And Amorim is set for the Premier League at some point. Again, another one that's been looked at by Spurs. He's been looked at by multiple clubs around Europe, actually. But he has also a desire to manage in the English Premier League, to manage the best players in the best league in the world. And that is something that will happen at some point. Whether it's Chelsea now, unlikely, obviously, with Pochettino now 1 foot in the door, really, you would say. And also with Tottenham maybe looking at other targets at this point, with Amorim perhaps not as close to that as people may say. So Chelsea have had to work hard for their man. Of that there is absolutely no doubt. But they seem to have had to work hard for a lot of things this season. And when Chelsea are concerned and this season is concerned, it's not a surprise when there is a surprise or when there's a twist in the tale. Pochettino now one step closer. But one of the problems that Chelsea seem to have had is the activity in the transfer market and how Bowley and Co have performed in that area. Maybe there's been some doubt about who's bringing the players in, who makes the final decision on what player comes in, and maybe some people are starting to wonder how easy it might be to actually work at Stamford Bridge. Now, a good example of this will be Enzo Fernandez. Fantastic player, Chelsea fans. You're delighted that you've got Enzo Fernandez at the club, of course, but we do know that happened because Todd Bowley seen him at the World Cup and said, I want that man. That was Todd Bowley that pushed that signing through, and of course, we know Potter had a say. We know Potter spoke to the recruitment team. It wasn't just players arrived. But Chelsea have a squad of about 30 players to deal with. They've got a lot of players to get rid of. How easy is it going to be for them to sign players? Well, to be honest, there's a lot being made of that. Chelsea do have problems financially in terms of wiggle room. There isn't much space for them to move in terms of FFP and regulations. But they've got lots of sellable assets to make that more accomplishable, to make that easier. The likes of Loftus-Cheek, Conor Gallagher, Mason Mount also set on his way out. You could see Koulibaly go back to Italy, although he's obviously done a lot better. Kovacic, his future, is obviously up for debate at this point in time. Lukaku's still technically on the books, and we expect him to leave Chelsea in the summer too. So there's a lot of assets that they can move out. Ziyech, another one who was on the brink of leaving Chelsea in January and ended up in the final of the day of the season depressed in a office in PSG because of a fault with paperwork, or as PSG claim, a mistake Chelsea made. But we do know that manager will need assurances. Chelsea do want a striker, and of course they need a striker. They've got every chance creator in football in their team. It seems they couldn't have more creative players if they tried, but they've no one to put the ball in the back of the net. Despite signing Fofana, he's obviously deemed not ready for that role at the moment, but Chelsea need a man to score goals. It's just they have to have someone to put the ball in the back of the net. Even the Real Madrid game, which obviously they lost 2-0 in the second leg, 4-0 in aggregate, they still had chances to score, but the best chance of the game fell to a left wing back in Cucurella, really. So they need a man up front. They have looked at Osimhen, but there's a battle for him with PSG, who are really keen to bring him in too. They have looked at Gonçalo Ramos, who is at Benfica, a very, very good young striker. But let's talk about Harry Kane, because one of the lines now coming out is if Pochettino comes in, does Harry Kane join him? And that's a fair thing to say. Harry Kane has worked with Pochettino, has a fantastic relationship with Mauricio Pochettino off the field as well as on it, and is one of the best strikers in world football. Even yesterday with Tottenham's humiliation, Harry Kane still scored a fantastic goal to give them a consolation, and his exit from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is getting closer and closer as Tottenham's season capitulates, as it really is running out of steam to a really kind of miserable end, which will probably see them land Europa League football and not Champions League. The likelihood of Kane leaving grows every day. Manchester United and Bayern Munich are both very keen on him as well. But could Chelsea enter the race? And that's really a fair question to ask. It's a good question to ask and one to watch, because it's a key position Chelsea want to strengthen. Harry Kane is also English, obviously, so that homegrown status stuff in Europe, which a lot of clubs, by the way, are having to work with. Chelsea have got a lot of English players, but they're going to sell a few of them, so they're going to have to balance that out. Are they going to want to use youngsters? That's why they want to keep the likes of Levi Colwill at the club, etc. So Harry Kane to Chelsea is starting to make a lot of sense, and you can see how this would happen. Obviously, we'll give you updates on that as we get it on Football Insider. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the videos as well, because most people who watch our videos don't subscribe. So please subscribe, it really helps us out. Romeo Lavia is another one that Chelsea are currently working on. Very, very keen to bring him in. Not a player that any new manager, at this point likely Pochettino, would be dismissed at working with. He's a fantastic young talent, and Chelsea are pushing to make him theirs, because Manchester City have this buyback clause. To be clear, it doesn't become active until the summer of 2024, and that has pushed those interested to move now. And perhaps there's been some surprise from those at City and Co at just how good Lavia has been, just how quickly he's settled into being a superstar talent in the Premier League. Really a fantastic player who you can see playing at really any club in England, gets in most squads, you would think, and the fact that Manchester City are considering going back in for him for this summer suggests that Pep Guardiola could see a space for him too. Liverpool wants him, Arsenal wants him, but Chelsea are pushing. We know that the contact has been made, and we know that Chelsea are trying to convince Lavia that Stamford Bridge is the place to come. Perhaps when they've got a guarantee that a manager's in, perhaps when they've got a guarantee of Pochettino being there from summer, that makes it easier for signings to come in. They know who they're working under, they can see some balance now and a bit of a more structured, solid future at the football club. But for Chelsea fans, it's been a long season. It's been a hard season, I can imagine. Obviously nowhere near where they're used to being in the league. They've watched their club be decimated at times, thrown out the Champions League by Real Madrid really with ease in the end. And Todd Bowley's coming in for a lot of criticism. If you can get this appointment right, if Chelsea can get this appointment right, that will certainly ease a lot of the critics. But they have to get this appointment right. That's why it's taken them so long to do so, because within the walls of Chelsea, they're well aware of the pressure they're under. They're well aware of the perception and the criticism that they have faced. And that is why they've pushed to do this correctly. But just to sum up, Mauricio Pochettino is now on the brink of becoming Chelsea manager. We do expect him to at least be offered the opportunity to do that. But of course, with this Chelsea story this season, there's always been a twist in the tail. However, it looks like at this point, all is well for Pochettino to be sitting in the dugout in Stamford Bridge. Big couple of days ahead and key moments to come now. But thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheerio.